Boys and girls and whoever you might be. You know, I didn't really want to do these videos anymore, and I still kind of don't, but I don't think they're that bad. They're pretty quick, whatever, so I don't mind it. So today I took a short, and if you ask me, it's a pretty fried, short, and this day got me actually kind of rethinking what I want to do because I came on the charts and I looked at London and I said, this is ugly, right? This is ugly. And I initially had a bullish idea, but I know that in market conditions like this, the most likely thing for me to do is, if I'm gonna long, right, is wait for some sort of SMT on these lows, right, before potentially having my shift to the upside. So I didn't want to force so longs way too early until I kind of got that nice confirmation and I was, willing to take shorts. But in all of reality, I don't think I even should have taken this trade. It's not that it's a bad trade. It's just the fact that trading this price action makes it so much more difficult for myself to, trade than it has to be that, I decided to pretty much, I guess, change my rules on how I trade. And it's essentially when I hop on the chart at 4 a.m. from now on, if the hourly or the 15-minute gap isn't actively, doing something, I'm going to hop off and I'm going to trade, 7 a.m. instead, right? So if I gonna quickly go over it as an example, is if you're gonna 15-minute, I took a trade, I took a long here, right? And when you hop on the chart, it's pretty easy to see that, we're probably gonna tag this gap and go higher, right? Again, it's very, very obvious what we're doing. Meanwhile, when you hop into the charts today, I would argue you have no idea, right? Again, from the hourly perspective, we do have this gap, but when I see this visual, choppiness, I know we're gonna probably have some sort of SMT, some sort of something before we displace towards these highs, right? And wow, like how much easier would it have been for me to trade this price action, which is clearly just displacing towards this high rather than trading this, which is kind of accumulating and doing nothing. So again, I am not necessarily happy with this trade. I think I read it perfectly, right? I think I read it perfectly and I traded it, well, pretty much as perfect as you could have traded it. But I still, I'm not happy about it because again, I'll go over a little bit of the New York pre-market and AM why it was so much better if I traded any other of them, but we'll still go through it with this, right? So on the 15-minute, it's again, I'm looking for some sort of SMTs, and right now we have nothing. We have this low and we have this low. So I'm, seeing the potential for a short down. We get a small displacement, we sweep this high on the 15-minute, and we get this immediate, reaction lower. Same thing on the 5-minute. What happens? We swept this high as well, relatively nice reaction candle to the downside. Again, my idea is, preferably, I don't want to see this high really being taken until we got that, internal manipulation on these lows before we can originally pump. So again, I had a bullish bias going into the morning, but just because I have a bullish bias, I'm not going to force the longs here, right? I see nothing in here that's indicating to me that we're bullish. The earliest sign of me seeing a proper bullish entry, in my opinion, is this candle right here. When we get this SMT, we have a small displacement, very small, gap created, the gap gets respected, and then we strongly displace away from it with a 5-minute candle. I think that is the most reasonable, if you trade a London session, what I'm trying to say, if you trade a London session, this is arguably the best trade you could have taken, right? And in all of reality, it's still, relatively bad. Like again, it's so much easier to just not trade a session like this, which is visually choppy, rather than forcing something here, because again, it is so much more difficult. So I went on to a 1-minute time frame. Again, I look for my entry. We take out this high and we start rejecting it in form of wicks and down close candle, another wick, down close candle, and then this candle just plummets to the ground, inverses all of this price action. So I entered short in here, targeting this low, but again, right, that's why I'm not really mad about this trade, because again, I played it perfectly. I'm constantly looking for this SMT because I know that that is what I'm looking for, right? From a higher time frame perspective, I know that when this SMT is set, there is no real reason for me to continue lower. And that is again why I kind of, even though this is a perfectly played trade with what price action gave us, it is so, and I'm not like, I'm low-key like glazing myself, but that's not my point here. It's so difficult to, consistently get these trades perfect rather than some of the trades I'll show later, right? Again, it's tradable. It's just so stupidly more difficult to, get these trades perfect than it is. Because, what if I wasn't looking for the SMT? And I was looking for this low because I do think it's a valid target because we also have this low below. And I would have gotten stopped out to break even. What if I mistook this for the, shift lower to the potential short? Like, it's just much more difficult, right? But essentially, again, the thought is we swept this high, which after we sweep this low, right? That is the kind of idea. After we sweep this low, this is the most recent high. So if we're going to reject this low, I want to see us go back into this high. We do that, and we have this death candle, whatever you want to call it. And this is the kind of candle that I say, close your eyes and just press short, especially when everything else aligns. So I did, and again, I was aware that this is, kind of sketchy. So I put my break even at a very close point, which is this low, because it also was in a 5-minute gap, even though I didn't expect it to hold, obviously I was in short. I still decided to go break even here, and worst case scenario, I'll be done break even. Ended up running to full TP rather quick. We got that SMT, and I basically bottom ticked this trade because of that SMT. Since the rest of the day, we've been going higher, and it's kind of funny because if you look at my trades, I do this very, very often. I catch, a 2, 3, 4, 5 minute trade, right? And then for the rest of the day, we just do something else. And it's like, again, this is a little bit of a sketchy one. If you look at my past videos, I think it's way better examples. But I'm essentially done within these, few minutes, while everybody else is trying to battle through to get something up here. Which again, obviously today is an exception, I guess, because it was super fucking clean. But I quickly now, after showing you the trade, I want to go over, what other trade I would want. Like, again, is this tradable? Yes, but it's so much more difficult to see, right? When it's there, it's so much more difficult to spot. And the thing is, I can't really time it per se, because when I come on the charts at 4 a.m. and price is at like this, I'm like, okay, well, we go down. Well, okay, I don't know what's going on. And then we go all the way up, and then we retrace, and we go all the way up to this high. And then, oh, now we get the setup. It's like, it's very, very hard to time base it. Because although, yes, after sweeping this high, the setup becomes valid. For all that I knew at the moment, we could have, swept the high. This was my idea. But again, it turned out correct. But what if it didn't? What if it didn't? So again, I don't really fuck with this entry, and I don't kind of want you guys to take an example of this because, again, is it within my setup? Sure, it is. Okay, I will, yeah, it is within my setup. Is it good? Yeah, maybe. But the key point again that I'm trying to say here is not that it's, good, or that, it's within or not within my setup. It's the fact that it's so much more difficult to spot rather than what I'm going to show you guys now. It's so much more difficult to see, right? Now, going into, the better trade of the day. If I traded the 7 to 8 a.m., which is the other time that I like to trade for a day, can you appreciate how much simpler this already becomes? We have an actual clear direction, and the most recent high is only up here. Like, you have a while before that hits, right? You have a while. And when we keep on creating these kind of gaps, there is pretty logical reason for you to believe that, we are going to continue going higher. So I'm going to take you guys into the 1 minute here, and we're going to talk about, the way better type of entry you could have taken, because again, I'm not super happy with my trade today. So arguably the best trade of the day is this right here. We got the SMT here, nice rejection candle, and this candle right here that displaces us away from the consolidation after the SMT. Just, I mean, I can't really ask for more. Like, this is a beautiful entry. This is A plus. Like, I would call it A plus plus even. Like, you get everything you want here, right? Compared to the other trade. Like, okay, if I was to rank, this trade is maybe, okay, it's not a bad trade. Like, I'll give it an A minus probably, but it's just the fact that it's so much more easy to get caught up in shit price action during this rather than get caught up in a shitty price action doing this, right? Like, as long as you had a long bias here, you probably took a winning trade, right? As long as you had a bullish bias, you probably took a winning trade. Meanwhile, here, even if you had a short bias or a bullish bias for you know, if you took a trade somewhere here, you know, there's much more likely reason you're getting stopped out, either even break even or full stop loss. That is essentially why I still think this is insanely better trade. Again, the other trade is good, but it's just so much more difficult to spot. I feel like I've said it so many times, but again, this is arguably the best trade of, you know, the day in my opinion. It's super, actually maybe not, but it's super fucking clean. It's super fucking clean. And then afterwards, we also get this reaction off of the 5 minute. Now, I want to talk about it a little bit. The fact that we, you know, fully filled in this gap and displaced, I personally wouldn't wait for the full inversion a lot of the times. I would just, you know, take this low as the probable low that has already been set. But really taking anything like this is fine. Taking this is a little bit fried. If anything, taking this would have been your best bet. After we get a retracement in and a strong rejection, you could have played it still as a continuation like this for a 1-2-1, going break even on the side. But then you're trading past the 8 a.m. and it's like, it's a little bit sketchy. So again, really, it is really this trade. It's really this trade off of this hour, and it's absolutely beautiful. And again, you know, you don't even have to look at this gap or this, because if you caught this, you know, you're done for the day instantly. And now going into 9:30. Now I want to say as well, I'm not planning really on doing this a lot, like talking about the other times of the day, but I'll do it as I kind of please, right? So going into the day, we are very obviously bullish. Yeah, we had this candle, but it's like, okay, we still have all of these gaps. Like, why should I go short? Then you zoom in on a 1 minute and you see this beauty. We have an SMT on these lows, right? NQ tapping into a 50-minute unfilled fair value gap into all those wicks as well, with a clear target above. And then the very next two candles just displace us straight through all of this price action and taking a long. Like, this is just, you know, I find it hard to decide whether this or that last trade is better. Obviously, the last trade is more RR, but a part of me wants to say that this trade is overall better, just because of the displacement that, you know, honestly, no, I can't even rate them against each other. I think they're both perfect now that I think about it. And then ultimately we do also get some, you know, price action here. We get some first tap into the gap, small displacement, yeah, inversion, but this is still terrible, quite frankly. It's not until this happens where we get the SMT after this gap is respected, and then this gap is ran through, which is important, where you could have taken something like this, right? In this case, again, you're targeting just above a high, so for the most part, I would go, you know, 1-2-1. Would come very close to your break even, very close, but it wouldn't hit you break even. And personally, if I took this trade, I was watching in real time. I'd like to have my stop below these lows. The reason behind that is that we did have a 5-minute gap that's stretch about this kind of mark, but my idea was that, okay, I prefer if price stays within this gap, but I'm gonna use my stop loss here to give it the room to wick down into the lower part of that 5-minute gap, while still, respecting this 1 minute gap overall. So again, this is also quite a nice trade to take, but this is kind of, again, it's much more difficult to spot. If I'm gonna give it a rating, I'll still say A. So the trade I took, out of all the valid trades, which basically is all the four that I've shown you, one in London, one in pre-market, and two in AM. I would say that the London trade is arguably the worst, but it's still really fucking good. Well, you get it. AM session or pre-AM is world class. AM is perfect as well, and then this one is fine, but yeah, it's a little bit tough here, but it's fine, right? I wouldn't mind taking this trade. Either way, that is about it for the day. That is the trades I've taken and the kind of lesson I got from it. And again, going into the days, I'm gonna focus on becoming much better at just realizing that this is in fact bullshit, and realizing that even if my idea is right and we end up getting those longs, I will probably get a very much nicer setup towards pre-market or AM rather than trading this bullshit essentially. So that is my lesson for the day. I'm still up. I played it very nicely, but I'm still not necessarily happy about it because I could have very easily messed it up today, or gotten unlucky, and would have been a different scenario. So yeah.